and welcome to the workshop room presented by Rakuten. My name is Z Siddiqui, and I'm a first-year MBA at MIT Sloan. And it's my pleasure to introduce today's workshop, How to Advertise Effectively on Facebook and Instagram. And today's workshop will be presented by Stephen Goldfried, who is the Digital Content Strategy Manager for the Houston Rockets. So without further ado, I'll hand it off to him.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. How are you? So first, a little bit about my background before we sort of get into this. And I just want to say at the top, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them during, so feel free to interrupt, raise your hand. I want this to be as interactive and immersive as possible. But I am the Digital Content Strategy Manager for the Rockets, and what that means is basically I oversee, along with our Director of Digital and our Vice President of Marketing, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Chinese platform called Weibo, YouTube, and Rockets.com, and the Rockets app. And my particular area is focusing on the creation, distribution, and then tracking and reporting of the content itself. My background is, I've only been with the Rockets for 2 years. My background is in film and TV, actually. I was born and raised in LA and worked in the film industry for a long time. I started off on a TV show on the CW network called One Tree Hill, which you may or may not be familiar with. Teen drama. Demographics were something like 12 to 18-year-old girls. Definitely channeled my inner teenage girl for a long time. I worked on that show for 9 seasons, started kind of at the very bottom, and then ended up becoming sort of the person mainly responsible for marketing, as well as I became a producer and directed a couple episodes as well. So after that, I went on to work at a large, well, at the time it was a startup YouTube channel called Awesomeness TV, which has now become one of the biggest multi-channel networks on YouTube. And I was there prior to the launch in 2012, following around artists basically around the world, making little YouTube videos and also a theatrical documentary that I produced, directed, and shot called All Around the World with a band called Mindless Behavior, who, if you're not familiar with, I don't blame you. They're pretty small, but had a pretty big following as well. And then after that, I worked at a Snapchat startup called Arsenic TV, which is sort of similar to Maxim Magazine, I guess, but in a digital version. So their main platforms were Snapchat and Instagram. At that point, I sort of randomly met Daryl. Actually, a kind of funny story. His daughter was a big One Tree Hill fan, and I was still sort of running the One Tree Hill Twitter account after the show had gone off the air. And I got a DM one day from Daryl Morey, and just talking about how his daughter's a big fan of the show, and I was like, wait, is this like the Daryl Morey? Like, I'm a big basketball fan, I'm a big fan of you. And we sort of just started talking, and it took about 2 years until we actually met in person at the Las Vegas Summer League, and I was sort of in between gigs in Hollywood, and also getting a little bit turned off to the industry and just the constant travel that I was doing, and it's grueling work to work on a film set. You're working 12 to 16 hours a day every day, and sometimes nights, and so I was kind of looking for something that I could keep using my marketing expertise, but and my entertainment industry expertise, but sort of, I guess, settled down a little bit. I never really had a steady job up until this job with the Rockets the last 2 seasons. So, because when you're working on a TV show every year, you don't know if you're coming back or not. You have a very real possibility of getting canceled, and then it's on to the next thing. So there's that uncertainty. And so Daryl said that he thought they might have a job open in their marketing department, and it kind of just went from there. And never been to Houston before, never really heard much about Houston, didn't know anybody there, but got the gig and moved there just over 2 years ago, and it all kind of went from there. All of that is to sort of say that I may very possibly be the dumbest person in this room. I am not, my background is not really as a data scientist or in analytics, though I've learned a lot about doing it since I got to the Rockets. And as social media has become more and more ubiquitous and more important for businesses to really embrace, pretty much every day I'm diving into it and learning more about it. And so I guess maybe that would be my first piece of advice when it comes to advertising online and not just on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to focus on Facebook and Instagram because a few reasons. We don't really do a lot of SEO and SEM, search engine optimization and search engine marketing, because we're kind of the only show in town when it comes to NBA basketball, right? Like if someone's looking for NBA basketball in Houston, it's going to come up top of the Google results, regardless of if we're advertising or not. But with Facebook and Instagram, we get good value for our ads, and we're able to, reach the whole world essentially. And so, the first kind of thing I want to go through is why to advertise on Facebook and Instagram. And a lot of what I'm going to talk about applies to Twitter advertisements. It applies to Google also. Online ads are all sort of similar in a lot of ways when you're making them. So hopefully you'll be able to take some of what you learn here today and translate that to if you're doing Twitter ads or if you're doing Google ads. But essentially, you can reach who you want, when you want, where you want. And you compare that to something like more traditional advertising like magazine ads or a billboard. We can put a billboard up on I-45 and we can get a decent sense of how many people are going to drive by that billboard, but in no way can we possibly track who those people are in any sort of granularity the way that we can through Facebook and Instagram's analytics. We know exactly who we are talking to when we put an ad online, and you don't get that from traditional advertising. And I think that's pretty obvious, but something worth saying. And I think across the board in most verticals, at least smart businesses are shifting a lot of their ad dollars away from traditional and into social media. The other reason to advertise on Facebook and Instagram is because between the two of them, they've got about 3 billion active users, and it's become pretty much impossible to get organic growth. There are stories, you might see Shark Tank once in a while, someone who gets some organic growth through Facebook or Instagram. It usually doesn't last, for one thing. They may make a big hit and have something go viral, but at a certain point, that will die down, the hype will die down. And so, I can't impress upon you enough, if you're running a business, how important it is to be able to reach your audience, whatever audience that is, through Facebook and Instagram. Let's face it, Facebook makes their money through advertising, and really what they make their money through is people advertising badly, not targeting the right way, not really knowing what they're doing. And so, if you really want to succeed in business, whether you're a startup or you're a company that has 11.5 million followers like we do on Facebook, advertising is pretty much a necessity. So I'm going to talk to you guys about a few different kinds of ads today, and I'll jump into the platform soon and kind of show you the step-by-step of some of these. But you can advertise for engagement and growth, and I would say that one of the things that we do a lot is engagement ads, and reason being, this is how we sell sponsorships now, and this is how corporate partners want to attach themselves to brands, is through engagement metrics. Now, it used to be impressions, and if you sort of think again about the billboard idea, people who are driving by that billboard may see it. That would be what we would call an impression, I suppose, if you're translating from online to the real world. But our partners want people who are engaged and who are commenting and sharing and liking posts and really getting that, sort of gaining that affinity through the fact that they're a Rockets fan and attaching, whether consciously or subconsciously, this brand to the Rockets, and then in turn having an affinity for the brand as well. And so engagement's a big one. And engagement and growth are sort of similar. So this graph I'm showing you here is the total change in followers in the last 2 years for all NBA teams, right? And we're very proud to say that we're #1. And you can see, like, you may think, like, okay, the Rockets have done pretty well the last couple of years. They've won a lot of games. You know, we added Chris Paul. James Harden is on an unholy tear. You know, of course we're adding followers, but, you know, there's a couple other things on this graph that are worth noting, and one of them is if you look at the Lakers, so the dark blue is Facebook, the light blue is Twitter, and the red is Instagram. If you look at the Lakers' dark blue, they have actually lost followers in the last 2 years. And that's pretty shocking just on its face when you consider that they added LeBron James to the team. You know, you would think that if there was such a thing as organic growth on Facebook, that they would certainly be having some of it. And the fact is that they've lost followers. So if there's any good use case for why organic growth is not a thing on Facebook anymore, that's it. You can also see the Sacramento Kings are right there next to the Lakers in terms of followers added, and they're having a good, you know, a little bit of a resurgence this year, but by no means is that A, a large market, or B, a team that you would think would be able to add so many followers, and they're one of the few teams along with us that are doing engagement and growth ads, and that's why they've been able to add those followers. And you know, it's important again for us to be able to go to partners and prospective partners and say, you know, we've got 11.5 million followers on Facebook, and we've added, you know, 6 million of those in the last 2 years, and we're still adding them. Those numbers are still important to them, aside from the engagement numbers. But of course, also, the more followers you have, the more engagement you're going to have. That's just natural. I'm going to talk about brand awareness and reach ads as well, which is more similar to you know, impressions, where you're just trying to get your people's eyes on your brand and let them know that you're out there. Traffic ads, which you would use to you know, send people to a particular website. So for us, that's rockets.com, and our retail arm, rocketshop.com. So we use traffic ads to do that, and I'll let you guys see a little bit about that as well. Related are conversion ads. So again, a lot for rocketshop.com for us. Conversion ads are simply ads that take people through the entire buying process and hopefully get them to buy something. And then there's other types of ads, app installs that we use, video views, which again are important sometimes for various reasons, but in particular sponsorship and engagement, and lead generation ads, which you would use if you wanted to sell tickets or get people to a certain event. Yeah, question?
Are you going to speak at all about how you decide between the various options?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. So he asked if I was going to talk about how we decide on the various options, and once we jump into the platform, and I'll show you exactly kind of how that works step by step, and speak to that. And then the last sort of thing before we do that, last couple things, is that online advertising, and this goes again for all the platforms. This was actually Google started this, and Facebook sort of copied it. But online advertising is auction based, and that doesn't mean that you got to sit there and keep, you know, throwing in your bid every second at all. Luckily, that would be a real pain in the butt and pretty impossible logistically. But what it does mean is that the better you're creative, the better you optimize your ads, the better that you are paying attention to how they're performing, and most importantly, the better that you target, that's how you win ads. It's not necessarily just the company that spends the most money. It's the company that spends the right amount of money but is also creating relevant ads. And relevancy is something that's super important when you're making online ads. If you, anybody can go on to Google AdWords, and they've got sort of they've got an online sort of school that you can take, and then there's a test to get certified, to be AdWords certified, and it's a 120 question test. I think they give you 90 minutes for it, multiple choice. I'll tell you right now, you can pass that test as long as you always pick the multiple choice answer that has the word relevancy in it. Google and Facebook in particular, you know, their stated mission is to get the most relevant content out to the people who will be the most affected by it. We can have a side conversation about what their, you know, less stated missions are, but that's what their stated mission is. And I really do believe that they do try to, for the most part, get the content to the people that are going to be, most affected by it. And then finally, the advertising structure on Facebook is 3-tiered. So it starts at the campaign level. So what is your objective? So that's a little bit what I talked about before. Are you trying to send people to a website? Are you trying to grow your followership? Are you trying to sell something? And then it comes into the ad set, which is where more of your detailed targeting happens. So this is where you build your audience, you define your budget and your schedule, you choose your placements. So you can choose to only advertise on Facebook, you can choose to only advertise on Instagram, or the audience network, which if you're not familiar is sort of similar to Google Ads. The audience network is essentially a network of thousands of websites that have an agreement with Facebook to run ads on their pages. And then you set your bid or you choose one of Facebook's presets. And again, I'm going to walk you guys through all of this in more detail in a second. And then the third tier is sort of your creative, your ad itself. So what images are you using? What videos are you using? What is the text that you're putting into the ad? Those kinds of things, which are essentially just questions of content. And you, of course, want your content to be the best that it can possibly be. So let's jump into the platform a little bit here, and let's just start by creating an ad. Now, does anybody here have a business manager account or an ad manager account? Okay, so if you're in yours, definitely feel free to open that up and look around in there and follow along with me. Cancel that. So here is the first tier section of, I don't think it switched over to, do I need to close the, there we go. All right. So here's the first tier, the campaign tier, where you're going to choose your marketing objective. And let's just say that we want to do an engagement ad, because that's what we do a lot of, and that is the way that we grew our following, was through an engagement. So pick engagement objective, and then down here it'll give you a couple different options: post engagement, page likes, or event responses. And so I'll show you this in a little bit, but you can also take individual posts that you've put onto Facebook and Instagram and just sort of boost and amplify those posts to get more engagement on those particular posts. So, one example of why we would do that is maybe we're running a sweepstakes with a particular partner, and we want to, amplify those sweepstakes. Maybe we're not getting a lot of great organic engagement, and we want to do that. Event responses are obviously Facebook events that you may have going on. Like, we've got a lot of community events. We're doing a dog walk coming up soon. And maybe we're not seeing as many people respond to that event as we want, so we can boost and amplify that. But I'm going to show you guys page likes right now, because this is, again, important for any size company, I feel like, but particularly if you're just starting out a business, this is a great way to get your business out there and get people to see your content. So we'll just name it page likes. MIT, and I'll show you what a split test and budget optimization is in a second on a different ad. But let's just continue, because this is sort of the simplest, most basic ad you can make. So up here, you'll notice there's an ad set name. So we're into that second tier now of ad set, where you're doing your targeting, right? So I'm not going to name this quite yet, because I want to define what our ad set is first. So I'm going to select out of all of my pages the rockets, and let's say we want to grow our audience in Boston, and let's make it a 50-mile radius, and you can do anywhere from 10 to 50 miles. So, and in fact, you can also enter down to the zip code level in this location-based targeting. So that's something that's important to know. Maybe you just opened a store somewhere, and you want everyone within 3 miles to get an ad. You can put your zip code in and then do your radius to 3 miles. Let's say we'll just keep it at 18 to 65, but you can, pick any age range you want. Language is something that you use if you're going to do a native language ad. So an example of that is like we have Nene on our team who's from Brazil. When we wanted to get more page likes in Brazil, we didn't add in Portuguese. We have someone in the company actually speaks Portuguese. We got them to translate an ad and put that ad out in Portuguese to Brazil with creative that was focused on Nene to try and get more page likes in that area. But if you're just going, if you're just going to be using English, you don't need to put anything in languages. And sometimes we'll do ads that are worldwide. And even in that case, you would just leave languages blank because most people in the world that are on Facebook at least speak English. So here's where it comes down to the detailed targeting. So let's say I want to add Houston Rockets fans in Boston. So I'm going to put people who like James Harden. And you'll see over here now that Facebook will actually give you a somewhat approximated but pretty accurate sense of what your audience size will be. So actually, pretty surprisingly, it looks like there's about 37,000 Facebook users who have in some way indicated that they like James Harden in Boston. And then below that, you'll see your estimated daily results and reach and estimated page likes per day as well. This is going to change when we change our budget, so just keep an eye on that. In addition to adding interests, or you can add behaviors such as people who use credit cards, which I'll show you on. Yeah, go ahead.
Question on the likes. So in terms of interest in James Harden, is that just people that have liked the James Harden page, or how does that define?
Yeah, that's a good question. So no, it's not just people who have liked his page. It is them. It's also people who Facebook has used their algorithm to figure out might be a James Harden fan. So maybe they just used his name in a post at some point, or liked something related to him, a picture of him at the All-Star game or something like that. It's not just based on people who have explicitly said they like him. It's based on Facebook gleaning some of that information from other things.
And is that all just on Facebook, or also on Instagram or other platforms?
Instagram as well. So all Instagram ads are done through this exact same platform, and I'll show you that in a second. But obviously, Facebook owns Instagram, and so you create all of your Instagram ads in Facebook Ads Manager as well.
Thanks.
So you can also exclude people or narrow your audience. And here we're going to exclude people who already like the Rockets page, right? Because what's the point of sending them an ad to like our page if they've already liked it? And then you can save your audience. And I'll just do that just so that we can see how that works. And it'll give you all of your detailed information, what you've just entered in. Boston Rockets fans. And then this is where I'll go back up and name my ad set. And I'm going to make it a little more specific. It's 18 to 65, Boston, James Harden. And I can always go back and access this ad set. So like if I was, for whatever reason, wanted to do another ad for Boston, to get page likes for Rockets, I could go back to this ad set and not have to fill out all this information and just use a saved audience. So here's a whole bunch of saved audience that we've done. And then after you've, so here's where you can actually edit your placements. For Facebook page like ads, you can only put it on Facebook, right? Because you can't get someone to directly like your Facebook page from Instagram. So that's where that works. But in the next example, I'll show you how to sort of exclude certain platforms, or if you wanted to do an Instagram-only ad. Device type, I mean, you can distinguish between mobile and desktop. I don't really recommend doing that because Facebook sort of, again, sends the ads out to who they think are the most relevant people, and 90% of that is mobile. So you don't really need to adjust that yourself, but if you were going to exclude something, I would exclude desktop, because again, 90% of people who are on Facebook are using it on mobile. Mobile devices, you can even distinguish between Android, iOS, but again, you know, we've never really seen any reason to do that. So here's your daily budget. So right now, these estimated results are based on us spending $25 a day, but let's bump that to $250, and you see that those go up, right? So, you know, depending on what your budget is, you can put as little or as much as you want. I will say that it's best to start with sort of your lower end number and test the ads for a couple of days, see how they're doing. And if you're not really getting the results you want, then incrementally raise this amount. And I'll show you sort of where you can get that info from, yeah.
So when you're excluding or selecting only specific devices, can you then segment creative by that as well?
Yes.
So like if you select both, but you're showing an iPhone in your ad, will you be able to change that later to where an Android device would only see an Android creative?
Yeah, so all of this stuff is not set in stone. It's all editable at any time. And really, that's maybe one of the most important points I want you to walk away here with is you should always be tweaking and optimizing and looking at what your ads are doing and how they're performing and changing them. If you just set it and forget it, you're not going to get the best results that you could possibly get.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess for the individual ad set. So for this specific ad set, if you wanted to do iPhone-only messaging, would you have to select iOS mobile only?
Yeah, I mean.
And then create a new ad set for just Android?
Yes, yeah. And you'll see in the next step where you're actually doing the creative how that kind of works. Like, if I selected iOS only, then in the next step, I'm only going to show an iOS device, right? And then your bid strategy, you know, we do the lowest cost. You can set a bid cap, but we don't do that because if you're targeting correctly, Facebook is not going to charge you more than it needs to. But there are situations where maybe you know, and it wouldn't be for a page-like ad, but maybe it's for a conversion ad. Maybe you know that you know, the lifetime value of a certain customer is $5. You can set that to $5 to make sure that you don't spend more than what that lifetime value might be. You know, so that's an option. And then it charges you by the impression. So we use that for page-like ads again because we want as many people as possible to see it, but there are other options. It can charge you by the page-like. I'll just say that I have found through trial and error that it becomes more expensive when you do it that way. So I go with impression when it comes to page-like ads. And then we run the ads all the time, and then we get to our creative. And so here's where you can add creative and kind of shape the message. And I'm going to name this ad engagement page likes. Oops. Boston. And then you choose your creative, right? So you can put anything you want in here, and I'm going to change out. This is sort of our header, right? So this is what the default option is. But I'm going to change that because, for one reason, Facebook does not like text on images. So their algorithm highly favors images that have no text on them. What you should be doing is putting whatever pertinent text into the caption and into the headline. Your image or your video should be something that would pique someone's interest off the bat just from looking at it, and then the rest of the information goes, you know, into the caption. Like if they're interested in your image and they see something that's cool, they're going to read the rest of it and then maybe click like. So let's take this out and let's add something like, let's go with that. All right, so something that we've also seen, which is pretty interesting, is pictures where there's action shots or where the basketball is in the picture do much less engagement for us than pictures like this, where you've got a close-up of the guy's face and he's smiling. So I would say, again, as a piece of advice, when you're choosing your creative, really try and pick, and this is completely from a marketing standpoint, but also supported by some of the data that we've been able to capture over the last 2 years. Pictures that show emotion or that give behind-the-scenes access, like if we can get a picture of the team on the plane, on their private jet, those things do a lot better than action shots. And that might be, that might seem counterintuitive. You might think that a great action shot of a guy dunking would do better than this simple shot of his face smiling, but that has not been the case for us. So really try and play on people's emotions. That's something that is just sort of marketing 101. And then your text is going to be up at the top, and so we're just going to say, like the official Facebook page of the Houston Rockets, for pictures, videos, contests, and more. I know there's some typos in there. We'll just keep going. And that's essentially it. It's going to give you the little like button down here, and that's what people will click, hopefully. We'll confirm it, and it'll create our ad for us. So any questions right now before I move on to, yes, go ahead.
All of our ads are focused on cost per leads, and we find engagement to not lead to dollars for us. What do you guys see as the purpose of someone clicking like on that post? And then can you talk about some of your email acquisition tactics on Facebook and Instagram as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we see as the purpose to these ads, it's really simple. We want to add followers, because when we go to our partners or potential partners and tell them that we have 12 million followers on Facebook, that's a big number that looks good to them, that helps us sell sponsorships. And it's really that simple. I would say that like page ads are not necessarily the best way to get a return on ad spend proper, but they give us that return when we're able to sell, a multi-million-dollar jersey patch endorsement or anything along that nature. So that's really kind of why we do page-like ads and why we're trying to grow our following. Yeah.
I don't know if I missed it, but did you say you run conversion ads at all or no?
We do. I'll go into conversion ads next, actually, and show you guys how that works.
Just so I don't come back to it. My question was, for that, in that respect, what is the attribution window that you guys use? Because I know, the opinion in which your ad dollars are effective or not can vary internally between person to person of, is our money worth it in a day's conversion or a 7-day, view conversion? Like it goes back and forth, so.
Yeah, so we use 7-day, 1-day click, 7-day purchase, and I'll show you that right here. So, so this is a conversion ad. I chose conversions on the previous page. And one of the things that you can do that we've had some success with is this dynamic creative. And this is just another way to essentially A/B test. If you turn dynamic creative on and you're connected to your e-commerce website, like Shopify, for example, Facebook will essentially pull items from your Shopify feed and create ads for you without you having to do that creative, uploading of photos that I just did previously. So, and then what it'll do is it'll start pushing out the things that it finds most relevant to the most relevant audiences based on your targeting. So, like, we recently did a campaign on like golf items from our rocketshop.com. And so we targeted people who like the Rockets and also play golf or have shown some sort of interest in golf. But we've got like 15 different items. We can run a dynamic creative ad there and see if the golf bag is selling more, or the balls are selling more, or if the little putting green for your office is selling more. And Facebook will itself actually start pushing those ads out. The ones that are performing better, it'll push them out more often. You can also create an offer in here. So like, if you have like a 30% off deal going on or something like that, you can put that right here. And tell people about the offer. 30% off on all golf items. And set an end date if you want. So, maybe this is only going for a week and we want it to end on March 8th. And even an end time. You can choose if you want them to be able to redeem online only or online and in store. And you can add a promo code if you want. So like, let's just say it's 30 off golf. So when people go to our website, rocketshop.com, there'll be a section in there for them to type in the promo code. You can also limit the offers to however many you want, up to 7 billion. So if you only have a certain amount, you can limit them. But I'm going to cancel this now just to make it a little simpler, and then let's make an audience. Let's just say it is. Well, we're doing 30% off this month for International Women's Month. So let's say we want to shoot this out to everybody in the U.S. And let's choose only women. And we want people who are fans of the Rockets. And we also want people who are online shoppers. And just to give you guys a sense of how much and how detailed you can possibly get in your targeting. Demographics-wise, they've got education, and then education level, fields of study, financial, income brackets, so household incomes, life events like anniversaries or weddings. So, depending on what your vertical is, a lot of these things could be very useful. Are they parents? Are they parents with teenagers, with toddlers, et cetera? What's their politics? Like maybe you're running some sort of charitable campaign, or perhaps you're a foreign entity trying to meddle in U.S. elections. I don't know. I mean, that's hypothetical. Relationship status. It goes on and on and on. And again, I would suggest, and repeating that I'm not a data scientist, but I would suggest, testing a lot of these. Like we run about 350 ads a year, 350 to 400, so more than one a day. And I'm always tweaking and testing. But you can target people by the industries that they work in or have shown interest in, by job title, by interests. So, entertainment, maybe we're trying to sell tickets to a game, we want to click live events and then drill down in there, which is, strangely, they don't have sports, but, if you were doing something else with a live event, what kind of movies they like, what kind of music they like, what kind of books they read, what kind of TV they're watching, family and relationships, Are they, again, marriage, you know? Are they into fitness and wellness, food and drink? What are their hobbies and activities? Shopping and fashion. So again, like shopping, you know, maybe you're trying to sell luxury goods and you just want to reach people who are into that. I mean, there's no point in you sending something, you know, if you're selling diamonds, you're not going to send out an ad to people who can't afford to buy them. Online shopping, so like there's one that we would probably want to add to this ad. And then sports and outdoors, recreation, sports, we'll click basketball. Technology, so, you know, depending on what your business is, again, maybe, you know, you want to target what kind of phone or computer they're using. And then behaviors, so consumer classifications is, you know, which country they're in, what their digital activities are, people who have used Facebook to pay for things, and more. And it goes on and on and on. And again, I would just suggest, you know, when you're making your ads, really try and look at your targeting closely, because again, the more relevant Facebook thinks that your targeting is, the cheaper you will win your ads at auction, and the more people they'll get it out to. You're competing against other people who are in your same industry and targeting, you know, differently. And so you want to make sure that you're being as accurate as possible, and again, always tweaking. And maybe here I want to add a connection type where I excluded people who like our page last time. I'm going to add people who like our page this time because they're probably more likely to want to buy something. And then you can save the audience. And here's where you can edit placements. So the placements that Facebook offers are Facebook, Instagram, Audience Network, and Messenger. But let's say like I just want to do Instagram. And we'll go all mobile devices and just add some budget. And then there's an optimization for ad delivery, which it gives you a few choices. And since this is a conversion ad, we want to do conversions. And the great thing about this software also is like, even an idiot like me can just keep learning along the way, because it will give you descriptions of what these different things do, right? So you just kind of need to work at it and get experience in it, and you'll be able to do it. But we want to optimize for conversions, and then here's that conversion window that we were talking about, which is what we do is 7 days click or 1 day view. So if someone views this 1 day and then clicks within 7 days, it will attribute it to the ad, and then when we go into the analytics portion, which I'll show you in a second, it will show you what your return on ad spend is. So we'll do that. We'll go with lowest cost again, and then continue. Yeah.
So you were talking,
about specifying the rule around people who already like your page, but at the same time, this is a conversion ad, and presumably Facebook's optimizing on that. Like, how do you decide how much you want to apply your intuition, which may or may not be correct, versus leaving it wide open and letting Facebook kind of do what it does to figure it out, perhaps even better than you?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I go on intuition first, and then I monitor the ad closely, especially over the first few days to a week. And I'll tweak things and create new ad sets with all the other same criteria. So it's really just about A/B testing, and like what I like to say is like A through Z testing, really. Like it's comparing and contrasting. And there's also some, there's no way I can get through this whole software today, obviously, but there are some functions within Facebook Ads Manager where they'll A/B test for you, and you can add up to, you know, you can go A through Z if you want, and then some. By creating different ad sets and running those ads, and they will actually report back to you after a period of 7 to 10 days on which of those ad sets is performing best, and at that point you can turn off the other ones, right? So that's the way to maximize your ad spend.
but you tend to think it's better to provide some guess at what the optimal thing is, opposed to leaving it.
Well, yeah, at first, I mean, you want to narrow your targeting down a little bit, because otherwise they'll just send it out to a lot of people who have nothing to do with what you're trying to get out there. Yeah. And then, different kinds of videos you can, creative you can use, obviously videos and a carousel ad, which is, multiple products. So I'll try and do this real quickly because I know we're we're getting close on time. I want to leave some more time for questions at the end and show you the back end. But, well, I'll just show you right here. So you'd put your text in there, and then I'm going to remove that picture because we're doing women's items, and I'm going to pull up this one and add another one because this is a carousel ad. So like you're seeing the Instagram preview here, and I'll show you in a second once I add another item. So it'll give you a preview over here of what it's going to look like on your Instagram feed. And I'm going to change that Learn More button to Shop Now. And in the destination URL, I'll add rocketshop.com. And at this point, once I click, go ahead with the ad, this ad will start getting served to the targets that I specified on Instagram because we said Instagram only, and it'll be a carousel ad where you can scroll through the different items. The default it gives you is 3, but you can add actually up to 10 different items. And that's typically what we do is add 10 because Facebook, again, will take the ones that are most clicked on. So like, say that there's 10 items in there and people are clicking on the 5th one more often, Facebook will actually reorganize this order and put that one that's getting more clicks up front. So there is a lot of kind of automation that they do for you, which is pretty helpful. So since we're running out of time, I want to get to the sort of analytics part of it. And this is your ads manager main analytics and reporting page. And so it'll show you, in this column, depending on what, and I'm just looking at the last 30 days right here. It'll show you in this column, depending on what your objective was, how many people liked your ad. So like, here's the one we just made. Obviously, it's pretty much real time, but it probably takes about 10 minutes to get you your data. Here's one, here, I'll skip that one, but there's a conversion ad here. So here is a golf gear conversion ad that we did. I'm gonna switch this to conversions. There's also tons and tons of metrics that you can customize when it comes to this page. So depending on what you were looking for, you can play with this forever. But I'm just gonna look at conversions at golf gear, which is one we had run. And we didn't spend a lot of money. We spent $1,180, and that yielded 24 purchases for $5,800. Which was a return on ad spend of 4.96. And I've actually found that when you run ads for long enough and you tweak and optimize them enough, you're pretty much almost guaranteed, at least for us, to get at least a 3 to 5 times return, and we've gotten as much as 10. So that alone shows you that the money is well spent. I also want to show you another part of the platform, which is your ad center. And what this is showing right now is just, I'm going to change it to our last 90 days. This is a very broad overview of how your ads are performing. But what I want to show you is, because, we've sort of talked about it a little bit, it's hard to really understand what your return is on a like page ad or a reach ad or a brand awareness ad when you're not actually selling something connected to the ad. An actual physical piece of something, and you're really just selling your brand. How do you determine what the return is, and how do you, go to whoever is, approving your budgets and say like, hey, it's worth us spending this money because, and it's pretty simple right here. Like we've done a lot of work over the last couple seasons on figuring out what our engagements are worth because, again, engagements are sort of where it's at when it comes to partners. They want to spend on an engagement basis. They don't really care about people seeing the ad anymore or seeing their logo. That's the kind of billboard idea. Like, they want to know people who are actually engaging. And so we've determined that our engagements are worth, anywhere between 25 and 50 cents, and it sort of depends, but let's just take the low end and say that one engagement is worth 25 cents. Well, out of all the ads we've done in the last 90 days, which you can see we've spent $23,636 on, we've gotten 15 million post engagements at 25 cents a piece. That's almost $4 million worth of brand recognition and media value. And so there's where you can see that this is really something that's very valuable. And I will also say that in my experience, advertising on Google is more expensive. Advertising on Twitter is way more expensive, 25 to 50 times more sometimes. And so Facebook and Instagram are really, really the way to go. And I think, we've only got less than 10 minutes left, so I'll open it up to any more questions. And if anybody wants to ask me anything one-on-one, I'll be outside afterwards as well.
Yeah, so you go back to the Harden picture. Can you embed a video of James doing a step back three? So he's got the towel on his face, and then you click and you see him hitting a three.
You can't do it like that per se. You can have a video instead of an image. So there's a couple options. You can do like a carousel similar to what I showed you with the conversion ad. You can do a number of pictures in one ad. You can also choose up to six pictures, and then again, Facebook will sort of A/B test those for you with the same text and all the other information and targeting being the same, but they'll send out that ad 6 different ways with 6 different pictures, or you can do a straight video ad. So if you just wanted to make the ad a video, then you could do that. But as of now, there's no function like you have on Instagram where you can do an album and the album can be comprised of pictures and video. As far as the ads go, it's got to be one or the other.
You use the example of finding James Harden fans in Boston. Let's just say, for example, you find a couple. Are you able to retarget those people based on knowing that they're not located in Houston, or on the flip side, they're Kyrie fans in Houston, and you can market Celtics game to those people?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great question. And I actually should have mentioned that one of the most valuable parts of Facebook and Instagram advertising, and it's kind of, I couldn't get into it here because there's not really enough time, but you can take your email lists, you can retarget based on people who have engaged with your content before and make what's called a custom audience. And so that's something that we'll also do is if we have some sort of offer for tickets, we'll take our email list of people who have bought tickets in that range before, throw them into a custom audience, and then Facebook will send the ads out to those people. And then great point about we will definitely, there's actually more Celtics fans in Houston than there are Rockets fans in Boston. So if the Celtics come to play, we'll definitely target people who are Kyrie fans in Houston.
Do you guys run any test and learn campaigns? Is that how you came to figuring out your 25 cents versus post engagement or stuff like that?
Yeah, we found that a combination of ways. So talking through it with people at other teams, a lot of research just based on industry standards. We do have some software that kind of helps us value and monetize, but it is something I do kind of daily, is try to kind of keep up on it. And I'll say also, when it comes to advertising online, you really do need to do your research and stay on top of things because Facebook is always changing their algorithm. And I have contacts at Facebook that don't even know what that means sometimes. And so you've got to test and learn a lot. You've got to do a lot of A/B testing. You've got to constantly be tweaking and optimizing and seeing what works best, and keeping up with the quick changes in the platform's algorithms. No more questions? Yeah.
So I have a content site, and so we'll often, just do posts. We don't have much of a budget, but so we'll just do posts like, hey, read our article or that sort of thing. Do you find that sort of boosting posts like that is an effective strategy for that kind of a market, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll boost a lot of posts for our sponsored events. If we feel like they're not getting a lot of engagement, we'll definitely boost. And And I'll also say, like, you don't have to spend a lot of money to be effective on Facebook ads, especially if you're like doing a pretty targeted area. If you're only, if you choose a zip code and then do a 3-mile radius, you can probably reach everybody in that zip code for $100 to $200. And you can run ads for as little as $5, and get some data back from that. But yeah, we'll boost posts if, particularly for us for events, just because our sort of, game highlight and game photo posts do well on their own. But boosting is also another very simple way. You have a little bit less leeway in targeting when you boost, and there's not as many options for objective. Usually a boost is a straight engagement play. But yeah, absolutely. And the other thing about engagement on social media is like, it's well worth it to boost a post immediately sometimes because, Facebook and Instagram put the posts out to more people if that post is being engaged with and if it's being engaged with quickly. We have 11.5 million fans on Facebook, and our reach, reaches as much as 1.5 million sometimes. So by no means is everybody seeing every post that we put up. And if there is a particular post that you want more of your audience to see, boosting it is a great way to do that. Yeah.
Thanks. So in the last slide you had, I believe, 15 million people reached, and then you had a conversion of, I think, 121,000 or something like that. In that situation, how do you go about kind of fixing that? So does Facebook give you recommendations in terms of what your competitors are doing? Is it a situation of your photos not being correct? How do you go about doing it, fixing that, I suppose?
So that's the 121,000 number there is link clicks. So all of these ads that we did don't have link clicks necessarily. So that's not really a bad number. In fact, we reached 28 million people and 15 million of them engaged with it. Right, so our engagement rate is incredible. Now, this is, again, a broad level view, so I can't tell you off the top of my head without looking into it a little bit deeper how many of those ads had links, but we don't do a lot of link click ads, particularly because, for one thing, like, we would do more of them if we were trying to sell tickets more, but this season we're pretty much sold out, and so that hasn't been a major conversion objective. And then for retail, that's actually a lot of link clicks because we don't, that's just one portion of this, for this last 90 days of the 23,000 that we spent, so. But the engagement rate is incredible. That's like unheard of pretty much if you're not putting money into it, there's no way you're gonna get a better than 50% engagement rate, and it's pretty hard to get that anyway. Sports tend to get much, much higher engagement rates than other verticals, but that's even high for us. No, so this is again a broad overview of like all of our ads. So this is just another way, like I said, to sort of like get a big general number of like how your ads are performing.
When you're boosting sponsor posts, are you baking that spend into the contract, or are you guys doing that out of your own pocket?
No, absolutely. So that's all included in the contract, and I work very closely with our corporate sales and activation teams to decide, first of all, to help them value the digital posts and the social media posts, because that's really essentially what everybody's asking for now. Signage in the arena and other more traditional things are not really what anyone's asking for. They all want social media now. So I work very closely with them when it comes to them pitching the deals and deciding how much they're going to charge for, and that all comes out of the sponsor's budget. Yeah. And in fact, like sometimes we will we're going to base what we're selling the social media aspects of the sponsorship on past performance, and of course you can't as a sports team, there's no way you can possibly predict what's going to happen in the coming season. But we'll give them sort of a minimum of how many engagements and impressions we believe that they're going to get. And sometimes we'll use some of that money to backdoor into getting those impressions and engagements. It's not a line item in the deal, though. They don't know how much we're spending on the boost. It's just built in from our side.
For the discount codes, do you have an ability to capture email through that, or are you just able to give a code and they get the code? Or if you want to capture their emails, do you have to create a campaign that's driving someone to a landing page to then capture their emails that way?
Yeah, so there's another one that I would have liked to show you if we had more time, an objective called lead ads. And that's where you would capture emails, where you would essentially create a form or an invitation maybe to, like a select a seat event, like come out to Toyota Center and check out all the seats that are available. Those are the kinds of ads we use to collect emails. That's the best way to do it, essentially. Yeah, you don't, and then in our app also we've got social sign-in, so we can collect information that way. But in terms of straight ads on Facebook, there's an actual objective for that, which is lead ads. All right, I think that's it. If there's no more. Thank you.